All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Programming 102 GA, Programming Logic and Design 1. All right, so to start off with, Tyler, this is Michelle. Michelle's one of our other instructors, and she's sitting in on class.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Michelle.
Nice to meet you too, Tyler. And we are in the same boat because I know nothing about this. So I'm more like you.
I actually know a little bit more than you would think.
Oh, great. Well, so now the other instructor is going to be the one asking for all the help.
Yeah.
That's great. I have to do it. I had to go back and review my notes to do this class. Like I said, I haven't taught a class of programming logic and design for a long time. We're not going to talk about how long. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The things that we're going to expect tonight is I'm going to go over who I am and a little background to myself. Then I'm going to do the introduction to class as well as what's going to be expected from this week, what we'll learn and what to expect. All right, so to start off with, who am I? I'm Mike Brooks, also known as Loki. I'm a fire performer here in town in Boise, Idaho, which means I eat, breathe, and spin fire. I'm a graphic artist, web design, programmer, very basic programming, but I need to step up on that. I've been doing HTML5 for a while now, as well as some CSS and JavaScript. So that's the last couple years. But before that, I was Air Force, retired 9 years ago after 20 years. I have a 24-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old, as of today, actually, 2-year-old grandson.
Oh, happy birthday, grandson.
And then I have a 21-year-old son. He's married. He's in the Marines in North Carolina. I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old daughter. Been married to my wife for 4 years, and I adopted her 2 daughters back in December. That's why I have the 9 and 6. So I started over. Programming. What makes it so I can teach programming if all I've been doing is HTML the last few years? All right, how many of you know what a TI-99-4A is?
I do not.
Do you, Tyler?
I don't.
Okay. To help out, Tyler, I prefer to speak on the microphone because, one, you don't have to wait for me to pause and read everything. You can just skip in when you want if you have a question. So don't worry about interrupting if you have a question. That's the best time to do it when you've got it on your mind.
Okay.
And so I like to teach that way rather than us taking time out to go back and read and catch up, because that throws a little loop in things sometimes. All right. TI-99-4A computer. Come on. Welcome to the TI-99-4A computer, home computer, Texas Instruments from 1984, I believe. And look how much it costs today. That's kind of scary. But if you look at these pictures closer, you'll see delete, instructions, erase, clear, and so on. And you do the control, and that's what it would do. But there were also aspects where you would hit the control, like W, or control R. That's when you're typing the code. You'd hit control R and it would type run. Control P, print, and other stuff like that. Go to, control G. I'm not sure those were the right keys because I haven't touched one of these since 1985. But that is where I started my computer programming back in 85. Actually, no, 1984. Yeah, 1984. So that was basic. And then 1985, we started working on, anybody know what a Commodore is?
Commodore 64.
Well, let's go a little bit older. The Commodore VIC-20 is where I went to next. This is the VIC-20. Programming on the Commodores. Okay, but let's see. We went from the VIC-20 to the 64 that same year, so I got to just touch the VIC-20. Had more VIC-20 at home because was one of the first computers. The TI-9940 Texas Instruments, they were one of the first companies to put out a home computer. At that time, IBM was putting out business computers, so they weren't affordable for home. So we had the Commodore 64, Commodore VIC-20, and the scary thing is the thumb drive you walk around with has more memory than those two put together nowadays. But they were fun. Now, I went to the Commodore 64 next, and there's a reason we're getting into this. Like I said, it's going to show you my programming history. Now, I don't know, have any of you ever seen the programming you do on a Commodore 64 to make a program work?
I have.
You have?
I have.
Have you, Michelle?
No, I have not.
All right, I'm making this up. I'm actually making up the code just as an example because the coding, to make a program, one of the biggest programs back then for everybody to program into their computers, you'd buy a magazine and there'd be 25 pages of code for you to input. Those code lines were like 20 sets of characters long. I think there was like 8 or 10 characters. So it looked similar to okay, we'll go with the 10. And like I said, there was like something similar to that. Do you remember that, Tyler?
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is sounding familiar. Well, the thing is you'd input all this, and you know the size of a magazine. It was the 8.5 by 11 magazine pages. The font was not 12 point. I believe it was 10. If that tells you how many of lines there were per page. So does that give you an idea, Michelle?
Yes, it does.
Now, for example, there's one line, and it would be numbered. Okay, just like that. And that's what you would do. Okay, you type each individual line. And like I said, this was like 20 sets wide. This is nothing compared to what that was. So let's go ahead and we're going to make this look a little more like this. And if I remember right, it was actually Times New Roman. So 10. Whoops, let's do that to all of it. Now, Tyler, what computer are you on?
Right now?
Yep.
I'm on a Dell.
So which one did the school give you? How's that?
I'm not on I haven't gotten a school computer yet. This is my first.
Okay. So, well, this is nice. I actually get to teach one of the beginning classes. That's cool. like I said, I've been doing the web design ones for so long that this is nice reprieve. All right, so you take a look at that. Just looking at that right there. All right, that is 141%. So we're going to take it down to 100%. And you would have a piece of paper or a ruler that you would go down line by line by line and mark off the line. Most people would mark a pencil line next to the lines they did. So when they saved it, which you probably saved it on a 5.5-inch floppy disk, or later on, you started with the 8-inch, then we went to the 5.5, and later the 3-minute tape drive. And by the way, my Commodore 64 is in storage and still works. So anyway, but that's the programming. And if you made a mistake, you didn't know till you were done with the program and ran it. You would have to go back line by line, character by character, comparing it until you found, and sometimes it would be just like that would be a 1 instead of a 2. And the program wouldn't run. You'd have to go back through 25 pages of that. I miss those days sometimes. They were fun. But that's where a lot of my programming started, okay? Then later on, I got into, 1987. I started on a program called Pascal. Have you ever heard of that?
Have.
You have. Wow.
And I have too.
All right. Well, Pascal 1. So I started programming at the very beginning of Pascal. Believe it or not, I was on a Mac computer. Oh, that's the Mac Plus. That came out later. There we go. That's what I started programming Pascal on. And this was the beginning of Windows. Mac had the Windows. And Mac and Apple both, Apple bought Mac out. So they got Windows. All right. But Windows left. They'd started with Apple, fallout between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Then they went and sold, Bill Gates sold the window rights to use on the Mac. Well, then Mac was bought out by Apple. Now you see Apple has their own operating system totally and went away from Windows. So that's a little history there. But the following year, I went to what was known as Pascal 2. So that's 1988. But I also went to another computer. The nostalgia of it all. The Apple II. And I was doing basic computer programming at that time. So there's where the biggest history of my programming came from, right there, all the way back to 1984, like I said. So it goes back to the beginning of home computers, basically, which is kind of scary now. But anyway, then I joined the Air Force in '89 and became personnel, so I had to use a lot of databases. So I started learning databases. We had to put in actual codes and long strings to get things changed in the databases. You didn't just go in and click or type in the word. You had to put in coding for it. 1996, I started programming web pages Now it comes to what gives me the authorization to teach. 2004, I saw an ad on TV for graphic arts. Said, hey, come on down. So I went and joined the campus here in Boise for Stevens Henniger College. 2006, I graduate with my associates in computer graphic arts. 2009, I start the bachelor's program. I was one of the second classes to go through the bachelor's graphic arts program for Stevens Henniger at the time, which is now Independence University. And at that time, it was online. So I took the second class, my bachelor's from Stevens Henniger online. 2 years ago. So 2016, January, I graduated with my master's degree as an MBA. So when I start talking on the business side, sometimes I will get a little carried away, but it's something to help everybody out. Remember, we're not just learning this. We're not just learning the programming. We are also learning how to be business professionals. So I'll stress that. So like I said, I've been programming for a long time. I retired 9 years ago now from the Air Force, and I've been teaching with Stevens Henniger / Independence University now since 2009. And I started then as a tutor, and now I'm an adjunct instructor. So being retired, partially retired out of the Air Force, I have fun doing this. So I hope that gives you a little background as where I came from on programming. That's why I had to go back and dust off some of my books to remember some of this and then update some of that knowledge. And I use it all the time, but I wanted to make sure I gave you the full updated version of it, because it doesn't change a lot what we're learning in this class. It doesn't. It hasn't changed a lot since the 80s. But some of the terminology has. They've combined some steps, taken the steps apart. So it all depends where you go on the steps of programming that we do. And for this class, I'm going to be using 5 steps, okay, as we go through it. So that's, in a nutshell, me. I know it took a while there, but when it comes to the programming side, I feel I need to give you guys a bigger advantage to see what where I come from on the programming for it. All right, now, do you guys have any questions before we start?
Not yet.
Nope.
All right, piece of cake. And as I was discussing before, now that we're recording, this is a 1-hour class. Tomorrow night's a 1-hour class. Graphic arts classes require us to do 2 2-hour sessions. So 4 hours of class per week, for every week of the mod. Programming classes, I found out today, require us to do 2 1-hour at least. So only 2 hours. So I understand some of my students were happy to hear that today when I said, we're not doing 2 hours. All right, so anyway, where are we going to start? Let's talk about the course information. Well, before we do that, I can give you my contact information. That'll help. All right, so as we see here, my name is Michael Brooks, or Mike Brooks. I go by Loki as well. Email michael.brooks@independence.edu. Telephones 208-901-9092. And my Skype, michael.brooks.boise. And I'm seeing a lot of people are going away from Skype, but I still leave it on just in case. The telephone is the easiest way to get a hold of me, especially on weekends. So if you guys have anything come up, you need questions, need something answered, need some assistance due to an emergency, an extension or something, let me know. You could call, but if you call, make sure if I don't answer that you leave your name and number. If nobody leaves a name number, I don't call them back. This is part of that. Let's teach you the professionalism part. Because by not leaving a name and number, it's kind of unprofessional nowadays. Now, if you text me, just tell me which class you're from, because this mod, I've got 3 different classes, 2 different programming and 1 graphic arts class. But funny part is the graphic arts class is programming. It's HTML5. So I've got 3 different programming classes this mod. So make sure you tell me who you are and what class you're from. If I don't answer you right away, I apologize that then I'm in the meeting. Sometimes, and that's why I say the texts are easier. I could sometimes in meetings or whatever respond to texts. Just can't take a phone call. All right, next. Now let's go into the class. Course information. All right, so upon successful completion of this course, and I'm going to read these word for word, and the reason that I read them word for word, the assignments, the assessments, the discussions, and the objectives. That way, at the same time, I'm going to be able to break certain parts down and say, this is what I expect out of that. That way, there's no guessing work. All right, so we're going to learn general programming topics such as data types, control structures, arrays, files, functions, and subprograms. Learn structured programming principles such as top-down, modular design, proper program documentation and style, and object-oriented program design. Learn basic tools and algorithms such as data validation, defensive programming, sums and averages, computation, and list searching and sorting. Gain real programming experience through optional use of Raptor, a free flowchart-based programming environment, and learn about data representation of integers and floating point numbers. All right, any questions to that part so far?
Nope.
Not yet.
All right, piece of cake. In other words, data management, right? If it helps, I've been writing databases since 1996. Sadly, though, I started on what was known as Access. All right, so for week 1, learn about the evolution of programming modules and programming user environments. Learn the fundamentals of simple program logic. Become familiar with the steps involved in the program development cycle. Understand pseudocode statements, flowchart symbols, and hierarchy charts. Learn about variables and constants, how to declare and assign them, and learn the value of good program design and documentation. So like I said, it's 2 hours of class. Now, it may go over, but I try not to go too far over that, okay? All right, so let's go to week 1, the discussion. The program development cycle involves a systematic process of steps. Discuss the importance of programming out a program on paper before writing the actual code. What are some of the advantages of doing this? Discuss the importance of the first step, which is analyze and understand the problem. Provide a real-world example in your response. All right? Now, something that the school's gone to, at least our department, is you no longer have to put an APA formatted citation at the bottom. All right? All we want is a reference. So, for this being a 200 level class, 150 words is required, at least 150. Less than 20% copied. And I do randomly check to see if they are. I do give you one chance to fix it. If it's not fixed, it stays a 0. Because, let's face it, in programming, there's not really a lot of new commands. They're all there. So we're used to copying and pasting and taking. But we can't be doing that when we're giving our discussions, okay? Discussions, we have to actually do our own thought. Okay, that's due by Wednesday. Then, by Saturday night, you need to respond to 2 of your peers and at least 50 words each. Not just a, yeah, I understand, that's a good point. Actually discuss. Because what are these discussions for? What do you think they're for, Tyler?
Spark conversation and to make people think.
Okay, that's part of it. One of the biggest things this does that people don't realize is networking. You start getting to know your peers that are in these classes with you. Great thing when it comes to networking. All right, so next. All right. The assignment, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of programming exercise. Complete the following program exercises in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Chapter 1, page 35, exercises 1 through 4. Chapter 2, page 83. Well, that brings up the question, where are the books? Do you know?
In the course medias. Oh, in the online e-library.
Well, let's go back to the modules.
There you go, the Vital Source ebook, right?
Exactly. Sample. Now, this could be one place. There's a couple places these can be. I haven't had to use the Vital eSource, so I haven't put it up here, okay? But, so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back another step. Student data files. If you need them, guess what? There's the data files you need for this class. And take a look. So we're going to download that right now. And it's so good. My internet's actually working. My internet was hijacked Sunday or Saturday. Somebody changed the password. And look, there's our chapters. So that's a good thing about this class. The chapters are right there, right? Did you know that, how to get to them, Tyler?
I did not.
Okay. Well, that's where we go. Live session recordings, career preparation, due dates, library links, and computer help. Course home instructor resources, that's mine. All right, so as you can see, let's go back to the assignment. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, you saw those there. Exercise 1 through 4, exercise 1 through 3. Those are what you're doing, all right? We're going to go over how to do those tomorrow night. But tonight I want to really cover, well, we're going to finish one more part, then I'll cover that. And guess what? The assessment is a graded quiz. You have 2 attempts at it, okay? Piece of cake, right? All right, now, that being said, now we're going to go back to here. We were talking about the steps, right? Let me go ahead and bring this up. I started the graphic. I'll finish it tomorrow. And this is the fun part about being the graphic artist. You actually get to make your own graphics instead of having to go buy them or find them elsewhere. All right. This, like I said, this is just, I'm still working this, so forgive that if it's hard to read a little here and there. All right, so the steps that I use, and like I said, some of these steps get combined, so there's 4. Some get separated, so there's 6. Some are left at 5. So it's a matter of where you go on what the steps are. But they're the same steps, just some may be combined or separated. All right, first we have our analysis step. And you notice I haven't fixed everything yet, right? Well, let's go back if you look at my discussion post. We have analysis, design, implementation, testing, and evaluation. What do you do when you analyze to start a program? Tyler, you say you've programmed before. What have you done in the programming world?
Well, I'm currently a full stack developer. So I do a lot of object-oriented programming.
Okay.
Design software for things like right now I'm working on a login system for a company gym.
Nice.
We look at the problem, what we need to solve, the different aspects of what needs to be handled.
Okay. What are some of the other things you need to look at when you analyze it? And this may not be your side of it. When analyzing, you have to most likely, remember, in these steps, the team lead tends to usually be the one that has to deal with every step. The worker bees get to just sit there, program, and make it work, right?
Yeah.
All right. And I'm not saying worker bees in a bad way. It's just a really good way to describe this.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at the analysis. When the project lead looks at these steps, the project lead has to, all right, now I'm going to work with this department. I'm going to work with this department. I'm going to talk to this department. We need to know, do we have the equipment that this program is going to work with? Do we have the manning it's going to take to support this program? So they work with logistics quite a bit. Logistics, the support personnel. They work with the team. And they work with the company, whoever they say is in charge of the program, right? So the analysis step goes a lot further than most people think. They look, okay, what steps do you need in it? Do you need name? Do you need a password? Okay, so we're going to use yours there as an example. So for that, what you analyze, all right, do you have the web space to put this page up first? And it sounds like, are you doing an intranet or an internet, Tyler?
For this, we're using an intranet, but I typically use Azure, Microsoft Azure, for all my server space.
Oh, okay. So you've done both sides.
I have.
That's good. So when you look at it, and you work for a company, or are you a contractor?
I don't work with a software development company. I actually work for a construction company, but I'm part of a software development team that works.
Okay. That's an interesting one. That's actually pretty cool. I like that idea. But see, even the construction companies are seeing we can't have just anybody work on this. We need somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a different side of it, which is really interesting because people forget about that with any company. But, okay, so now, since you're working on an intranet one, do we have the web space? Well, that's probably already been decided as a yes, or you wouldn't have moved to your step. Do we have the personnel to support it? Well, guess what? You're that personnel as you're writing it, too. It sounds like you're going to probably be, let me guess, about 5-10 people?
Our current team is actually 5.
Okay. So you guys are going to be busy.
Yep.
How many people in the company?
Just over 3,000.
Oh, so 5's really good for that. Usually there's more, but that's really good.
Yeah, just for the development team, we have a support team that's separate.
Oh, okay. That
IT
helps.
department, but our development team alone is 5: front end, back end, a database engineer.
Yeah,
So
the fact that
we've got a full team.
you have both of them, that's really good, because if it was just the 5 of you doing both of that, you wouldn't sleep.
No, absolutely not.
All right, so you're starting to see that the analysis step takes up more than just what most people see. Because you're seeing the support team even now they see less than you see. The support just, okay, what can I do to help you? Right?
Yeah, and then they handle support calls, and then they log all of our bugs and us.
Okay, and they come to you. And then your project lead, if something's really wrong, has to go back to all those other teams and say, okay, this step's not working. But we'll get into that. Now, we've done the analysis. So now we come to the design step. And this is all done on paper. We're still doing it, the analysis on paper. Now we get to the design. We start the design on paper. And it's a flow chart. So we're going to be breaking that out tomorrow night into flow charts. There's a couple types of flow charts that are used. One of them, it's outdated, but I actually saw somebody not too long ago using it. But we'll go more to the easy one. But I will discuss the outdated one. So now we can make this so we can actually see it. All right, so the outdated style is we're going to type it onto paper. And they used typewriters back in the 80s. But, all right, so step 1. Open login page. Step 2. Now, usually there is a subset here. And since it's inside, and let's use actually mine doesn't have www on it, so we're going to use this as an example. This doesn't work because I don't have a sign-in on it, but this is an example, okay? All right, correct? Have you seen anybody use this type? Tyler?
HTTPS?
No, this type of a layout. When they're showing you, this is what I want.
Yeah, I have.
Oh, okay. It's usually an outdated one, but the next step makes it so much easier. Okay? All right, and so on. They actually make this, what's this called?
Sitemap?
It's not really a sitemap because this is all on one page.
Are you like laying out the DOM?
Close. Okay, so here, we'll go a little further.
Sure.
Next step. Type in name. Type password.
And just a workflow.
It's a workflow. It's a flow chart, right?
Yeah.
All right, so there's a very simple one right there. Whoa. Unter. There we go. All right, so this is a very simple flow chart. Right there is a logon page, correct? That's the start. Now we have to take this to the next level. And this is where we start an actual flow chart. So we're going to bring up Illustrator while we're talking about that. So, all right, so we'll go back to that in a minute. Implementation. So we go from the design process on paper to typing it in to the coding. Then we do the implementation step where we put it on the system. Then we do the stepping test, the testing step, which basically you have a team of people that test it. Some people and a lot of businesses have been missing this testing step. They go right to the implementation and right to the evaluation. And some of them don't even do the evaluation. They just say, guess what? Here's our new process. We're going to implement it. 1996, the Air Force implemented a new database system called Personnel Concept 3. PC3 is what they called it. That became outdated really quick for a couple of reasons. One, most of it didn't work. The reason they bought Personnel Concept 3 or PC3 was because PC1, PC2 didn't work. PC3 looked good on paper, so somebody in charge said, yeah, you know what you're doing, I'm buying it. Do you know how much money in the long run that cost the Air Force? That was 10 years of money fixing the program because it didn't work and do what it needed rather than scrapping it and starting over, because that would have cost more. So when it comes to size of a company, this process saves so much money. That's the actual process, like I said. But you can see where people break this process down, right? All right, so now, when we're doing this, there's two steps to this, okay, to the design process. Let's bring up Illustrator, new one, and we're going to do 7 by 8.5, create. All right, so first step, we're going to make a box. And in that box, what do we put? What do you put in this one?
Oh, I was going to say number 1 on your list. Oh, or.
So we're going to call it a logon. You're off to the right path. But now we actually break this down. And this is the flow chart people know. All right, so from here, now we're going to go to this next step. Whoops. All right, now we're going to make a box. But the box actually becomes, what is this called? Does anybody know what that's actually called?
Like the flowchart term for it? Because, I mean, of course, as a designer, I want to say it's a diamond, but I know that's probably not the right answer.
Tyler?
I don't.
It's a diamond. But actually, there is another term for it. And believe it or not, my kindergartner learned this term, and I didn't learn it till a couple years ago. There's another name for that. What is it?
I'm assuming it has to do with some kind of action, like something the user action, there's an action that's taking place or something. That's going to be my guess. What's it called?
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? This is why it's no longer called a diamond. It actually has another name for the shape.
Oh, they literally renamed it to a rhombus?
A rhombus, yes. So I had to look that up, and it's like, that's a diamond. No, it's a rhombus, Dad.
Oh, that's so cute.
Okay, so we put it right here. All right, now this is a choice box, basically. So in there, what is the first thing we need to have there? Okay, what do you start with in a program? Right there. What would be the first thing that you would put in there, Tyler?
I'm assuming if you're doing your first on your list, you're going to have your username login input field.
Close, but you got to remember now we actually have to break this down. Do you have a login? Come on, here we go. Correct? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, so just like you're doing a database. All right, do you have a login? Well, Command CV. And now we have two choices. Whoa. Those choices are yes, I have a login. No, I do not have a login. Okay, so yes, I have a login. What do I do next? What's the input box look like for an actual flowchart on a program?
A rectangle.
Tyler?
I was going to say, if you do have one, you're going to have your username input box and your password. And then an enter or a clear, and probably a forgot password.
All right, so right here. So this step would be what? Input, log on, log in. Let's do this right. All right, no. Well, the no will go to another box. So you're starting to see how this works, right? This is, back up, the design step. You get all these if-thens taken care of. Do you, yes or no? All those questions will be answered in this flow chart. This flow chart, that's why I said I'll have the graphics finished tomorrow, because I decided that I'm going to try to teach this one a little better with graphics than no graphics. So for me, that's my style. Okay, so analyze, design. Again, the design comes in. We'll put the flow chart. We'll put it together a regular chart, which was the word. But now we need to be able to, is this step there? Can I do this step? And honestly, we skipped this step here of opening the page, didn't we? First, you need to open the page. There has to be a page there. I didn't put that there. So the first step would actually be open page. Then we go to, do you have a logon? Then to there. Is that making sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now with that, we take a look. The implementation is, well, you type the program up and you put it into the system. You take it from your test environment, where you've tested it, but now you need to test it in the real working environment, the real environment. Put it in there. Because, as we all know, something may work great in the testing environment, but once we take it and put it into the real environment, there are factors we've never taken into consideration. One of those factors are people. Most people do not take that into consideration because, all right, there's 5 of you on this team. You each know what's happening. You know how to do each step. So you've had the practice. You're not making mistakes. You're not putting extra things in there, correct?
Correct.
You'll never know what somebody's going to try to put in there until you put it out.
Yeah. Input validation.
Yes, the input validation. So you know it because you've done it so much, it's second nature by that point. Yeah. You're not going to be able to think of every mistake somebody's going to do. Granted, you have a big experience of some of those mistakes. So you program to avoid that, right?
Yeah.
But let's face it. Okay, here's a good example. In the 80s or in the 90s when we were using, even in the 80s and 90s when we were using passwords, I'm going to make a password up here. And we're going to use my name. I know, I broke all password rules there, right? Well, that's okay for this example. All right, Michael space Brooks. All right, now, let's say I needed to type that in for my password, right? M-I-C-H-E-A-L. Uh-oh, there's a mistake. Well, I do this. 1, 2, 3. A-E-L space. B-R-O-K-S. That would have just not let me log in. Because the backspace was considered a character. So there were people that would do a password. Okay, now we're going to go to Michael as the password. All right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters, right? All right, so they would intentionally do this. M1. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters. And then the enter. If you did a backspace, it was counted and your password was wrong. Unless you put it in the password like I just did. And then it was appropriate. It worked. That doesn't work anymore, does it? I can't think of a system around where it works.
No.
Because most people, oh, I made a mistake typing in my password. If that was still in effect today, 90% of the people would never get into their accounts. Let's face it. Okay, so that's where each of those steps come into play. So we've tested it. Now the evaluation step. If I'm going to evaluate it, you take all the information from the testing, which means, let's say we tested, okay, we're going to give this a really nice short amount. We tested this for a week, which for a system, a week's really short. But we're just using it as an example. All right, so out of that week, I had 30 people not being able to log in. Then we have to analyze why. What was it that kept them from logging in? We're back to analyzing again, the analysis step. That's all this is it's a continuous evaluation, analysis, design, implement, test, evaluate. Go back, now you need to analyze all your evaluation statistics. Boy, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. But this, for a programmer, is our life cycle for a program. It never ends. It is an actual cycle. Software Development Life Cycle, SDLC. This week, like I said, we're stressing the analysis. And as you can see in the directions, let's bring them back up. Analyze and understand the problem. Where was it? Okay, there we go. So in that case, analyze and understand. That's all that step. See why I said some people will break it down into 2 steps, analyze, then you understand that analysis and go to the design step. Some people will add that as a step. So that's where the 6 come in. But the main step is 5, okay? Are there any questions on this?
No.
Okay, so does this get you started for tonight? And then tomorrow night, we will continue with this week's information, especially the assignment.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to class. Poke and prod some of your other classmates to get them in here.
Okay.
And we'll see what we can do the rest of the mod. Thank you. Have a nice evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. You too.
so much, Michael. Bye,
No
Tyler.
problem.